For many years, our sovereigns had welcomed the advice of American residents who had established industries on the islands. As they became wealthy, their greed and their power increased. Although settled among us and drawing their wealth from our resources, they were alien to us in their customs and ideas. Kalakaua valued the commercial and industrial prosperity of his kingdom highly. He sought honestly to secure it for every class of people, alien or native. And now, without any provocation on the part of the king, having matured their plans in secret, the men of foreign birth rose one day en masse, called a public meeting, and forced the king to sign a constitution of their own preparation, a document which deprived him of all the power and practically took away the franchise from the Hawaiian race.
We, citizens and residents of the Hawaiian Islands, organized and acting for the public safety and the common good, hereby proclaim as follows. The Hawaiian monarchical system of government is hereby abrogated. A provisional government for the control and management of public affairs and the protection of the public peace is hereby established to exist until terms of union with the United States of America have been negotiated and agreed upon.
It has been known ever since that day as the Bayonet Constitution, and the name is well chosen for the cruel treatment received by the king from the military companies.
And the king signed it without hesitation because he didn't want any bloodshed, or he didn't want to be assassinated because he knew they would go that far. The Constitution was called the Bayonet Constitution because a group of men came in with bayonets and forced the king to sign it.
The overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy in 1887 was a key turning point in Hawaiian history. Today, that event provides a rich backdrop for students in contemporary Hawaiian public schools, and an opportunity for the research and development of a unique type of educational test. A partnership between the National Center for Research on Evaluation, Standards, and Student Testing, CREST, and the Hawaii State Department of Education has resulted in tests where students show their understanding of their past in ways that prepare them for life in modern Hawaii. In recent years, Hawaii has been in the process of re-examining questions of who they are and where they're going. Increasingly, they have turned to their historic past to explore modern problems brought about by an expanding economy and growing population. In education, what has happened in Hawaii is happening across the United States. Parents, teachers, business leaders, and educators have become dissatisfied with current levels of student achievement.
And across the state, there's a real strong concern about the low level of performance. People are saying, what's happening to our kids? Why can't they read? Why can't they write?
We're desperate for academics over here. We are desperate for our children to know the progression of the United States history. What's first, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War? A lot of our kids don't know.
I see very, very few students who read outside of the classroom. And getting them to read and write in the classroom is a struggle.
Who owns all the land in the Hawaiian Kingdom?
Hawaii's educational issues about low student achievement and need for higher standards and quality assessments are the same urgent issues faced by virtually all states.
People got a portion of land?
Hawaii created a Commission on Performance Standards with the purpose of clearly defining what students need to be able to do at specific grade levels.
In Hawaii, the need for performance and content standards are very important because we're decentralizing our school system. We're giving our local schools greater flexibility and autonomy and resources through school community-based management. Through that process, we're using the standards as a target for all the schools and to reach, but we're freeing them up at the internal school level to decide how to get to those targets. And that's why standards are so important, because it's the one link that keeps the system together.
We don't start with standardized tests and then work backwards. What we start with is, what do kids need to know? How should they be able to perform? So the first step was to establish content standards.
As content and performance standards have been developed in thousands of school districts and schools across the United States, Tests to measure whether or not students are meeting the standards have become an increasing need. The National Center for Research on Evaluation, Standards, and Student Testing, housed at UCLA, is working closely with a number of states and major school districts, such as Hawaii and the Los Angeles Unified School District, to develop assessment systems. These systems typically consist of combinations of performance assessments, standardized norm reference tests, and classroom assessments. Assessment systems allow students several different ways to demonstrate their skills and knowledge.
What we're most concerned about is that we want to have multiple assessments. You know, we have students with many different learning styles from many different cultures, nationalities, and we want to make sure that there's a multiple range of assessments so that we can actually allow students to be measured with different instruments.
For over 15 years, CREST has worked closely with school districts and states in the research and development of new assessment models. The performance tests developed by CREST for Hawaii were based on the content understanding model, but all CREST models have the same purpose: to help states and school districts move from high standards to challenging assessments that help children learn. Eva Baker describes one of the assessment models designed to assess important aspects of students' conceptual understanding.
The assessments are very, very challenging. They ask students to read primary source materials in history. That is, in American history, kids read the Lincoln-Douglas debates. In Hawaiian history, they read the diary or excerpts of the diary from Queen Liliuokalani and Senator Thurston. Then, after reading these pieces of work, then the students have to write a complex explanation about what these pieces of text mean in the context of the history they're studying. So in order to do that, they have to bring in a lot of background information that they have, a lot of other learning, and then they have to use the kind of argument that is appropriate for historical discourse. So it's a very, very hard thing to do.
Well, this assessment test was pretty hard for me. All three sections, section 1, 2, and 3. But the hardest part was section 3, where we had to write an essay about Stephen A. Douglas and Abraham Lincoln.
It was interesting. It was a different approach at testing. It made me think.
I thought this test was pretty difficult. It covered just about everything I learned this year.
You had to think a little more to express your ideas. This test had to show how well you could think hard.
I got to learn more about the United States history and stuff that I didn't know before.
The critical thinking is pretty tough.
As part of a major research study by CREST and the Hawaii Department of Education, over 7,000 Hawaii students took the CREST performance assessments. In addition to evaluating the effectiveness of the CREST performance test on a statewide basis, the study sought to identify differences in student performances and reasons for those differences.
Several years after Kalakaua, Queen Liliuokalani ruled the Hawaiian people. She wanted to change the Constitution from a bayonet constitution to an absolute monarchy. There was a man whose name is Sanford Ballard Dole. He thought the Queen was wrong. He said that what she wanted to do was take away the right to vote from 1/4 of the voters and abolish the upper house of legislature who were elected.
In 1864, there was an attempt to hold a constitutional convention, but Kamehameha dissolved the convention, and in a week's time gave the land a new constitution, under which the country was prosperously ruled for 23 years.
A recent history of the government has shown a stubborn determination on the part of Her Majesty to follow the tactics of her late brother.